Alright, my fellows. We've decided to remake the org for the most part, and we're going Starcraft, Terracraft, and we're going to start putting the org information probably on the streams. Basically, the idea of this organization is going to be we don't need to buy javelins and Idrises and all of that. It's going to be focusing on ground operations and making the supply lines that would fuel those big ships and stuff in the game. I don't care about having the in-game. I want people to be able to earn the in-game through the guild itself. So instead of you joining a guild or an organization and some guys like, hey, fly my javelin, I would like people to join the organization and earn their javelin in-game. Now, if somebody does have ships that are useful that we could use, because there are a lot of people that have ships that they'll buy, then I'm not opposed to using them. But we need to be able to have the foundations and the structure to actually support those ships when the game actually does release. And so we're going to have to do a little bit of testing and trial when it comes to ground operations. Because one thing right now, just a little bit of testing that I've did already, is that most people, they don't really bother with ground, like maximizing the amount of money that you can make on a planet's surface in a group, because for them it's more efficient, I guess, for them to just go to a space station and drop things off and all of that. But when we have less and less space stations, and when the universe gets a little bit more hectic and dangerous, I don't think you're going to want to go back to the station all the time. And also, it takes a good amount of time. So right now, when I'm taking the Carrack out, for instance, I go down to Daymar, whatever. I can go around and mine, all that good stuff. But if I wanted to go back to the base, it would take me, time to travel from there and back over and over. And the Carrack can already hold a good amount of cargo in general, but it isn't really the most efficient at moving people. Um, Basically, it's not the most efficient at moving people to mining spots because it's kind of slow and big and bulky. It's kind of awkward. All right. Now, if we take the same thing and we have let's say we have a group of 20 people, and we have a Carrack and a Liberator, right? Well, then you could put a bunch of PC's aircraft on top of the Liberator, have people doing bunker missions, have people doing cave mining, which we're going to be looking for the caves in Daymar around Jumptown pretty soon. That's one of the tests that we want to do. But you could have people doing all these little things, the search missions, the bunker missions, um, and just drop them off and then bring the ships back, because since we know that NPC ships are going to attack people who do these ground missions and stuff, and you have bunkers, then you could just drop the people on the ground outside of the danger zone, have them running on foot, and potentially that would be better. And then I've been thinking about this a little bit as well, because since we want to use arrows and stuff as our base combat ship for planetary conflicts, um, it can technically fit in the Carrack, but it can't close the doors. So I'm wondering if the Carrack is going to be able to actually refuel an arrow in the future. And if that does become the case, then that basically turns the Carrack into um, a fuel extension. So say you land your Kraken down on the planet's surface, and then you move the Carrack over to another area, and you're doing ground missions, well, then your arrows can fly to the Carrack, refill, and then go in and help them and use that as a forward operating base, which would kind of negate some of the things that you basically need from like a Vulcan. Although we don't know if the Carrack has any sort of repair capabilities, but if it was able to repair an arrow in there, that would also be a bonus. Now, we're kind of putting in some rules and stuff here. We're basing this on Starcraft. So we're gonna have basically Terracraft is like planetary. Um, mining and all that stuff, and then Starcraft. I mean, we're going to be going up into the stars at some point. Um, I think the base things that we need are we need people to be able to break out of prison. So that has to be like the base standard so that we can get people in and out of jail in case we have to do illegal missions or conflicts without it being a huge pain in the rear. And then we need to have a firm ground, like a firm understanding of like ground mining and all of that. And I got to thinking about this a little bit more on what ships I kind of, would have an interest in. And I haven't really considered this ship in a while, but the Pioneer, I have been kind of on the fence about this ship for a little bit. And the Q&A and the other descriptions basically confuse me a little bit because if we look at the Q&A, uh, let's see here. The Pioneer performs fully contained modular outpost construction on site. It creates modular structures, foundation, things like that. Um, it's revolutionary as far as ship capabilities go. Isn't a weapons manufacturing plant, repair shop, or furniture store. However, external improvements like static defenses are among the concepts we are developing for the outpost add-ons. Any external add-on structures will be bought at a store, rather like a ship or personal equipment that can be placed when you put down the outpost or added on later. And this is what is confusing me a little bit because it almost sounds like most of the extra add-ons that you can build don't require an outpost. It sounds like an outpost is really only needed to be built if you want to live there and have, vehicle storage and container storage and stuff like that. But then when we look at some of the videos over this, um, they have like medical modules and stuff that they showcase. So it makes it a little bit harder even. But like if you look in here, it's basically, and this is also something that I think about when so this is CitizenCon from a while back, and also currently when people are saying that a legendary figure from CitizenCon's past is coming back, let me see, uh, let me see, Star Citizen, when was the Pioneer concepted? I hate how it does this. With 2947, what is that supposed to tell me? Is that like 2 years ago? 2017. So it's been 7 years since this was showcased. Now, when people are saying that a legendary figure from CitizenCon's past is showing back up at this CitizenCon, my first thought, like, it could obviously be an actor or something, but my first thought is this guy, the Consolidated Outlanders guy.
Stars. They've become such a familiar backdrop of our day-to-day life that it's easy to forget what they mean. That one. That little dot right there. That's Bremen. And this one over here? That's all. Think about that. Just a handful of these dots represents the breadth of human expansion. Another handful, and you've got Bannon, Jean, even Vandul systems. That's everything we've ever known. Every piece of art, every life, ever, right there. In two handfuls of dots. Now that means there's so much more to find. Behind every one of those points of light is a story waiting to be discovered. Now in our distant past, it was the province of governments to explore and understand space. The simple launch took resources and money beyond the capacity of even the largest companies. But then RSI introduced the Zeus, and suddenly regular people were able to explore our solar system, allowing an unprecedented amount of knowledge to be discovered. When Nick Croshaw discovered the first jump point, the modified scanner array that allowed him to search for jump points were far too expensive for the civilian market.
Here's the other thing with this, all right? He talks about technologies being too expensive for the civilian market, and then he introduces the Pioneer, which is like the civilian market's version of base building and stuff. But if you're thinking about this, it means that there was something that the corporations or like the military were using to build bases on planetary surfaces during the wars, unless they were just using ships.
But once that technology was refined and open to the public, what happened? That's right, an era of expansion that led us from this to this. And that's how it's always been. If you look at all the great eras of human history, whenever innovation has put technology in the hands of the people, it has heralded sweeping discoveries. Because power in the hands of many will always exceed the power of few. So while we can now discover new jump points and systems, there's still one hurdle that remains. That's what to do once you discover a new planet. Because right now, only the largest corporations can terraform and establish settlements. Easy. We haven't simplified terraforming yet. No, I'm here to announce something equally exciting. Albert Einstein.
That's the other thing. Talking about terraforming. What happens if they make a terraforming ship? Being able to change a planet's surface, that would be kind of nuts.
The man who redefined human understanding of the universe. He once said, "The person who follows the crowd will usually go no further than the crowd. The person who walks alone is likely to find himself in places no one has ever seen before." An insightful sentiment meant to inspire thinkers and creators to push the boundaries of their understanding. It was, after all, said 1,000 years ago, before humanity had left our homeworld. So clearly he was speaking metaphorically. Today, as I just showed you, the unknown is out there, waiting to be discovered. For those that are looking for those places that no one has seen before, they are faced with a daunting challenge. What do you do when you get there? Up until now, it's been the province of governments and corporations to pave the way for sustained habitation. The power has been in the hands of the few.
Sustained habitation. Governments and corporations for sustained habitation. Which also, during these videos, they talk about degradation of settlements and outposts on planets and how like the environments will wear down those things unless they're constantly repaired, which also makes me think that the same thing will happen with spaceships. When we land them on a surface, they're going to get slowly whittled down and break down on the surface over time. So I'm a little split on the Pioneer because part of me kind of wants to build the bases because it's more like Starcraft base building. but I don't understand if they're actually needed. So if we don't want to build a permanent base on a on a planet, do we necessarily need a pioneer? Because if we can pick these modules or whatever they're talking about, because they're saying that the generators, power plants, mining lasers, defensive turrets, all of those are additional add-ons that you have to buy separately in a store and then bring them to those areas. Now, if you can just build a generator and mining lasers repeatedly and just have a big mining section without the need for a big outpost there, then we could just use ships like the Kraken as your base and not have to worry about building all this other stuff. But when we look at the panel that happens after this video, they talk about all the different types of uh, outposts that there are. So there's like mining outpost, um, just habitation outposts, medical outposts. So if the medical outpost can make a medical bed and it's like a tier 1 medical bed or something there, then that kind of negates a lot of like the medical ships in the game because you could just bring a pioneer in and build a medical bed on the planet to spawn at, which could potentially be better than a lot of stuff that we're seeing, you know, but it's hard to say.
What if I offered you the ability to build your own settlement? To bring civilization to the most untamed of frontiers? A colony ship in the truest sense of the word. And I'm not talking about just transporting people, no. The word.
So you look at this building that's behind him here. What they act like is happening is that the Pioneer only builds these buildings. And you can find these buildings on planets right now because you have a mining outpost, you have the some other stuff. But you can see like this mining outpost has like a little drill thing out here. But the only benefit that I could really see to this is if you can live in it, because we've seen mining outposts that have beds and stuff in there. So it seems like you could build an outpost, you could log off and log on to the outpost. The outposts are permanent. So when you're not online, people can attack them. But it appears like you'd be able to stay around here and mine and all of that good stuff. But I don't know if there's any benefit to having a mining outpost over just building mining lasers and like having a bunch of oil rigs out there besides like storage. The only other thing is like maybe if the AI interface with this, if you have an outpost, you can actually put down landing pads and have AI land and take off and gather stuff for you. That's probably the best thing that I could say with it. But they also have a part on the panel where they talk about that, saying that the Pioneer is for those players that want to I forget exactly what they said. They said the Pioneers for the players that want to either build like a massive org thing or they want to manage NPCs. And if managing NPCs is the point of the ship, then that potentially means that you could build these outposts and then have a number of NPCs running the outposts for you, I would guess. But I don't know.
And I'm not talking about just transporting people, no. I'm talking about an all-in-one solution designed to build modular structures based on your needs. Capable of building a farm or a habitat, a trading post or a mining operation.
See, it says modular outpost and says farm, habitat, trading post, or mining operation. But it's not 100% sure if you would need the building to collect resources and stuff,
I mean, that'd be crazy, right? Allow me to introduce the Pioneer.
The engines on this thing bother me because they're pointed in.
With that, let the new age of colonization begin.
Now, what I would show is when they go to the panel, they start showing things like vehicle garages and stuff, and that's what gets my interest, is because if there's degradation of buildings and ships on a planet's surface, then ground vehicles might be in a similar manner, and it might be better to have garages and stuff. But it doesn't really tell you what the limitations of this are. Because if there's garages that you can build on a planet's surface for vehicles, then can you build repair facilities? You know, they act like the ship is only capable of building like a habitable structure, and it's not able to produce weapons or anything else here, which makes me think that it wouldn't be able to produce much of any equipment. It seems like it's just building a pod that you can live out of. But then they also talk about being able to buy the additions to attach onto your outpost, but they don't really explain if you have to have this ship to put those down or not. Because let's say that this ship does extra large buildings, but you can buy those additions, the mining lasers, the power plants, whatever, and it's like a medium-sized building or something, and you can just use a ground vehicle to build that. Then you don't really need the Pioneer to build a base for you on the ground unless you really want to, which I'm split on it because I feel like what I would want to do is move from planet to planet, from area to area, and just build more and more resources networks. But I'm not sure.
So the idea, so before we even thought about this, before we even got into it, there was a couple of prerequisites that we felt needed to be done. First one being procedural planets that you guys have seen. Now, obviously, that creates a huge, massive play area that we need to fill.
We've talked on 18 design department, so made from concept and tech design go hand in hand. Just we want to have a ship that creates outposts. So, well, okay, that's quite a big bit of gameplay. So we don't know how we're going to do that, or we didn't know how we were going to do that at the time. And then the other really interesting part was we want it to be consolidated outlands, which we have the Mustang, and trying to extrapolate that up to the huge scale. It's like, well, all the other manufacturers, we know what little ships look like, big ships. We can't just take a Mustang and go, it's going to be ridiculous. So,
well, we could try.
So what we did first, we talked with Nathan Dearsley and Paul. We didn't do a white box for it, which is quite an unusual process. They went away and did all mood boards, concepts of what they want consolidated outlands to look like, which Paul will show you some of the early stuff, because it was very clear from that what shape and form the ship would take. There's no point us making boxes if the ship's going to be a round flying disc. It's not going to work. So we got those back, and you can see the round and round bit in the middle, where we got the concept. Chris liked it, signed it off, did a white box, went with art. I was like, no, that doesn't work. Round and round we go, till everyone was happy, signed off, and that was that. So some quick ship stats. The new ship matrix went live last night at some point. It's to the simplest. It's like give you it when we have some solid numbers. But the numbers we do have there are the ones we do know about. So it's 200 meters long, which is quite big. It's a capital size ship, which if you've read all the shipyard posts we've been doing over the last 2 weeks, explains that. It's got 600 SEU of cargo, which is used for building the bases. A min crew of 4 and a max crew of 8. It supports 8 living on it, so you can just about get by doing 4. So it is a team effort to do this stuff. On the next bit is the more detailed breakdown. And this actually didn't change much from the initial brief that we did. Things like thrusters always change as we build the ships out and work out where the best place for them was. And the only bit that actually changed was the turrets. So we went from having 4 manned turrets to having 2 manned turrets and 2 unmanned turrets. And that was, as we were going over the shapes, obviously to get to a manned, or to use a manned turret, you need to get a man to that turret, which in itself creates restrictions on sizes and shapes by more detail at it.
Well,
You're going to trust me with the clicker. The art side of the talk, very especially with this basic and it's not going to be but it's a lot. He's able to piece we see here seen that because really wanted you all those you taste them in and take. There is a tournament of where
Problem with this ship that I can see though is just there's so many moving parts on the inside. If this takes any damage at all, I just don't understand what's going to happen. You have to be able to keep it repaired.
swiftly moving on. This is just some quick outlines, just sort of outlining that changing about everything that is in there. So hopefully you'll have more.
Also, some people, I don't remember if it's on this panel or not, they mentioned that this ship being a base, and then some people were saying that it might be able to harvest its own materials and stuff and refine them in here, but I'm not sure. But if that pad up top could hold an expanse, then you could gather materials and move them over here. My problem is that if you don't have a bunch of like flying mining ships, or if the ground mining outposts or buildings that you build aren't able to get every material that you need, how are you supposed to, keep everything supplied with ore,
A good advantage or possibly disadvantage for firefights, depending on if you have people taking over your base. And then this is the bridge.
It would be cool if they had like a bunker version, like you build it and it has like exterior guns and stuff on it.
And this is pretty cool. You can see on the sort of far, you've got of dinner with you just to give you an indicator, just showing this.
In order to acquire it depends upon a variety of objective criteria, as well as the.
See, the way this guy talks in this panel, he's basically making it sound like if you go and you find a good location on a planet with a lot of resources and you mine them all, and then you picked up and moved and came back later, they could like respawn and stuff like a node. It's kind of what it sounds like to me. But maybe it's not like that. Hard to say. But I kind of like the idea of being more mobile than being stuck in one spot for a long time.
Seller's insight into that information, which we collectively refer to as knowledge. One of the things that we about very to varying degrees, and the easiest way that I could give for an example would be to consider a car that you're thinking about having that, and there's a really better domain.
There is it right for you? What it all means.
Now here's the other thing, all right? When they talk about finding the right spots for your building locations, they talk about Origin, Anvil Terrapin, Anvil Carrack. So they're saying that these exploration ships apparently are going to find these locations, do core samples or whatever else, and find the areas that are worth building. And to some degree, this would make sense to me, but it's also hard to keep everything like in my head right, because I would like to have more Carracks. I'm assuming that the Aquila is also going to be able to do this as an exploration ship, but like, are you going to need a specific vehicle on, like,
but
what is that vehicle there? Snippet. I don't remember how to zoom in on stuff. Edit. Options. Three wheels. It doesn't look like an Ursa though. Has 4 front lights. 3 wheels. This was 7 years ago though. But this is also the different Carrack look, I think. This looks like it's just one big bay right here, so this is the old Carrack.
To get that knowledge, you've got to go and find that area to figure out what's there. Is it right for you? And that's where all the exploration ships come in. You could take your Pioneer and do all this with your Pioneer, but it's probably not going to be the best ship for scouting locations. We've got a whole wealth of exploration ships that are designed for finding that information out. It's like you wouldn't take your oil rig out into the ocean and just randomly dot it down until you found what you wanted. They send the scouts out to find the best locations. So the ships you mentioned there's just a small range of the exploration ships, like the 315P, Terrapin, Carrack. All exploration, all have slightly different pros and strengths. So you've got the single ones, you've got the big crews, and they're just there to help find where you want to send your Pioneer to. You might find a nice location, but if you went there in your Pioneer, you're never going to find out where the nearest refinery, like Tony talked about. You could build it and you find it's millions of miles away, and that's going to be a waste. So these this location, got the big crews, and they're just there to help find where you want to send your Pioneer to.
I think he's talking about finding NPC
you
refineries.
might find a nice location, but if you went there in your Pioneer, you're never going to find out where the nearest refinery, like Tony talked about. You could build it and you find it's millions of miles away, and that's going to be a waste. So these exploration ships are really sort of key to finding those places.
Yeah, and one of the things we're aiming to do is make sure that there's a lot of gameplay.
See, there's also a lot of stuff that's bothering me with this too, is because like I wish that I took part in Q&As and stuff when these things happened, or if I was able to get questions answered, because I never really care to like go on those. But there's practically no solid information about outposts versus these supporting buildings and stuff online at all with their building system. So it's kind of
Associated with these high-level concepts. And by that I mean, if you discover, if you're working your long-range scanners, you may find a previously unknown body, an asteroid that no one else within the system knows about, and there is a level of value related to that. If you work your dials a little bit and you've got the proper equipment and skills, then without actually having to make the journey, you could increase the potential value of that knowledge find by being able to discern, the mass of the object. A large asteroid is going to be, all things, being equal, be worth more than a smaller asteroid. But if you really want to ratchet it up, and this kind of goes back to the degrees of knowledge that I was talking about, if you actually make the journey to it, fly over, burn fuel, burn time, brave whatever dangers are between you and there, and you actually do a flyover the surface, then you may actually just visually see, pools of hydrocarbons, of, gas venting from the surface. And again, that raises up what you know about it all the more. If you really want to get specific about what's there and maximize the potential value of that find, though, then you're going to have to set down on the surface, and you're going to take core samples, and you're going to basically have these processed, analyzed, and you're going to do things like seismographic surveys and have, et cetera, et cetera. And so all of this plays into a common theme that we're trying to execute upon, which is all of these high-level ideas and stuff have a variety of different ways by which the player community can basically attack them, and by which these things will feed, the outputs of one into the inputs of another.
So now that Tony's kind of giving you a high-level idea of what land is and how we value.
I'm also looking at a lot of these graphs they do, and they're like have these maps that they're kind of zooming in on, and I feel like this is what the Endeavor stuff's going to end up kind of being. Like you can zoom in on these locations, you can see these hot spots and stuff, and you can kind of like figure out where things are from a distance without having to be there. Because stuff like this, being able to look on that and you're like, oh, there's heat on this island. Well, that could be, you know, geothermal stuff, that could be like an outpost, that could be, volcano, like who knows. And I think that's kind of interesting potentially.
It. I'm going to talk about actually claiming your land. So first and foremost, claims are not tied to the pioneer. A single person, organization can buy them, so on and so forth. Then we have the concept of UEE space, non-UEE game. So if you do plant it in the UEE space, then the idea is that you get the protection from the UEE.
This guy also talks about mercenaries. So you can get UEE protection in the space, or you can also buy additional security being mercenaries that come and periodically check on your base. Which I think is kind of interesting, because if you can hire mercenaries in like unlawful space and stuff, that's kind of unique.
In case somebody comes and attacks you and stuff like that. It will be transferable between players. Like any good government, the UEE will actually take a cut of that in a title transfer cost. We're doing general licenses. Later on, the UEE will portion out licenses. So when it comes to actually claiming the beacon or claiming your lands, you'll have a beacon interaction. So you set down your beacon. This is where I want to go. And either yourself, one of your teammates, or a data runner will take this information to the closest UEE colony office, and basically that's when it locks in, and now that land is yours.
Yeah, so one of my favorite aspects about just the overall concept of land is actually speculation. And the basic idea is that assume that you've purchased land and you've gone out and you either bought it with foreknowledge that it likely contained these minerals, et cetera, or you discovered that yourself. And so now you're holding on to this land, and the decision you'll face is, well, do I basically extract that value right now? If whatever that land contains is currently in a bear market, it's not worth very much, then you may elect to basically wait to harvest whatever it holds until those particular commodities have price. And it sounds simple, but there's a lot of ripple effects to where we get really interesting knock-on gameplay effects. And by this I mean, when you own land, that doesn't prevent someone else from necessarily going in there and extracting those resources. Now, obviously, if you're doing this within UEE space and you basically sit down and you're extracting resources from someone else's property, then that's a criminal offense, and basically the game's security system will deal with them as appropriate. But, of course, the police aren't patrolling, every square inch of every planet, every asteroid, every moon, every minute of the day. And so you holding onto that property, waiting for, a better payday in the future, has real implications in terms of, well, in addition to relying upon the system security, do you want to put your own sensors there so that you're alerted when someone else does something that you don't like on that area of land? So if somebody starts mining, you'll basically be notified, and then you and potentially your org mates can head out there and basically push them off. You may hire mercenaries to basically periodically.
So you just talked about mercenaries, but see right there, he said that people can come to your land and mine it, and then you can get warned about it and come over there and stop them, which makes me think that they wouldn't have to build an outpost. Like they could either take over somebody else's outpost, or they could put down their own drilling stuff. So I don't know.
Patrol your land with a higher level of frequency than what the normal, the normal UE security forces would do. Basically, the equivalent of hiring your own personal security to, to keep watch, of your valuables. And I'm really just touching the surface here. I mean, another thing is it makes the point that you don't necessarily have to do the full end-to-end cycle in order to take advantage of this. You could, for example, buy land or discover land and then just flip the land after you've verified that it's got this, as opposed to you necessarily exploiting, mining, pulling up all of that material, which is a very particular type of gameplay that some people will love, but for other people, the discovery aspect or the security aspect, or on and on. If you have an interest in only one section of these areas, then you can still contribute to the overall equation. If you want to basically handle everything yourself, you can also do that.
Okay. So solely towards the Pioneer, and what I'm going to talk about is preparation. So first thing that you're going to do is you're going to need to do collect materials and add-ons from different stores. So
he says materials and add-ons from different stores.
Get materials from TDDs or refineries, and you'll be able to pick up some of the add-ons like Tony was talking about, remote sensors or extractors, solar panels, moisture extractors, geothermal pumps, landing pads, turrets, that kind of stuff. Now, what is very important to understand is, if any of you have ever done home projects, know what you're building, so that you don't do 5 trips to Hornbach to build something. So if you know what you're building, and then you know the resources that you'll save yourself multiple trips, or it will be one of those things where you'll need to have these resources brought to you. So what do you want from your outpost? What's your gameplay intent? Do you want to be a moisture farmer and, live and respawn there and basically look out over this beautiful beach, or do you want it to be like a revenue generator? So basically you'll swoop in, you'll watch over it, you'll check in, make sure everything's running smoothly, move on to your next thing. So with this, we've got investment, not only from a resource and basically game money standpoint, and time to build. Not as fast as Paul's videos. So the other thing is, depending on the size of it, that will increase the build time the higher you go. Now, once it's actually placed, you're going to want to upkeep it. Depending on if you put something in Earth's atmosphere versus the Mars's atmosphere versus Venus, well, those are all different climates. And so the wear and tear and just kind of the usual stuff that we're doing with the ships, and as far as stuff breaking down, so on and so forth, this will be the same. So configuring. Now, the idea would be that you're working the architect station, you're choosing the exterior layout of it, and then from there, you'll move into the interior rooms. So some of the different interior options: habitation, armory, storage, med station, mining, refining, hydroponics. And so with this, depending on what you're doing, each one of them is going to require a different amount of power. And then that starts going into some of the add-ons. So if you're mining, or if you're doing something that's very, very power intensive, growing things, so on and so forth, then you're going to need to run extra power in there. And with the add-ons, just like with our ships, if you think of our ships as the base hull, and then you have your gimbals, you have your mounts, and then you're attaching weapons, you're attaching ordnance, you're attaching utility items. It's the same idea here. It's basically you have your base structure, and then you have these item ports that Chris always talks about that will feed into the ore extractors, and that's how we generate the power. So here are just some of the internal shots. I think you guys have seen some of these already. I like the salad spinner, hydroponics, different mining ideas, storage. So one of the important things is basically if you're growing plants, or if you're basically dealing with any sort of bare form resources that will feed into our ecological system, then what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're actually storing these items, and so that you're not just mining once and then basically having to shut down because you don't have any more space. Drug lab, so in case you want to do a little Breaking Bad. Then idea about research, and this would be maybe you're close to the sun or something like that, and you want to research some solar flares or those types of things. Med station. So the main thing for us has always been a sandbox, and making sure that you have the freedom to focus on the gameplay that you find interesting. And so what we wanted to talk about was just some of the ecosystems that we feel these things help support and help build. You've got the haulers and traders that would be dealing with things that would come in, and if you're mining or if you're growing plants, well, these are going to take these to manufacturing or processing centers. Tony mentioned the security and the needing to actually protect your things, because I can guarantee you, if you're making money, people are going to want to take it from you. Exploration, John mentioned this about going and finding these plots of land and everything like that. Then there's repair, obviously mining, farming, and the refining stuff. So that is our panel.
Now, here's the other thing, all right? He says repair, which makes me think that basically what you're going to be able to do with the Pioneer is get blueprints to build pretty much any kind of building that can do the same, if not more, than ships. So if you have a Pioneer and you have the resources for it, you can build repair stations, you could build landing pads, storage areas, medical facilities. There's so much possibility on the ground with that. That's pretty wild.
Thank you.
The answer.
Would that be the Intel Saber Raven?
Yes, it would.
Materials required looks quite small for such a big ship. Is it possible to land a freelancer or something, or do you have to ask for like 200 ships to bring you one crate after another?
So it fits 40 by 40 meters. So there's quite a large, it looks quite small on it, but 40 by 40 meters is a lot of space. That's what we deem safe. You can, like with all things cargo, you can push it and get a little bit more on there, but 40 by 40 is the designated area. So there's a lot of cargo options in there, and it is right next to the cargo bay. It slides next to it, so you.
I want them to be.
I want to as well.
Well, to me, it's basically like cleaning up extra stuff. So if somebody wants to burn it, and then you go in and you salvage it, I think that should be doable.
And so sorry, I know there's a lot of hands, but our last one.
Will you be able to spawn at the med stations?
That's the goal, yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to ask, just because I prepped this one ahead of time, because I know the answer and I like the answer.
See, because when he says spawn at the med stations, it makes me almost think like your tier 2 to tier 3 bed, or tier 2 to tier 1 bed. And if it's tier 1 beds, then we don't really need an endeavor if we can build planetary hospitals.
So, what ship does the Pioneer fit in?
Doesn't?
It's in the Pioneer?
No ships fit in the Pioneer. It's just a landing pad on top, not a hangar.
Thank you. Hold on, Stacey. Break. It's going to be a little bit, I think, right at 10 o'clock. So,
Look at these guys. This was 7 years ago. I don't feel like I fit in with this community. Hmm. Like this guy over here might be more. I'm kind of in this ballpark, I think. This guy's really serious. It's like, damn, this sucks.
we're going to take a break. It's going to be a little bit, I think, right at 10 o'clock. Our local time here is when Chris is going to hit the stage. Gives us, I am sure, gives us a little padding of time to strike the stage and get it prepped. So have fun.
But yeah, it makes me really wonder about the Pioneer. The Pioneer performs fully contained modular outpost construction on site. It creates modular structures, foundations, things like that. I feel like there was something else. The most obvious example of this right now is landing pads. We've yet to decide how exactly we will handle, or we will allow the player to build the landing pads, but it will probably be in sections. If a player wants to build an outpost and use it only for storage, that is their choice, but it will not be bigger than the structure's footprint stated above. So here's my worry, because it says that there are different types of ores, metals, and other substances used in construction. That makes me worry a lot because I don't know. It already seems like you're going to have to be able to, like, if you're going to explore space for a long period of time and build bases to mine and stuff on the ground, it seems like you would need to be able to um, gather more resources to build more buildings, or otherwise you're going to have to go back, buy more materials, and then fly all the way back out again. And this ship, when it's full of materials, is probably going to be a really, really big target for pirates. They're talking about like 600 SCU, like fully stocked to the brim with building supplies. Can the Pioneer make the add-ons like solar panels, landing pads, generators, and the like, or do they have to be purchased separately? These would be purchased already fabricated and added to the outpost. See, so it looks like you're buying all your attachments and stuff, you're building You're like putting all the parts for one building on this ship, is what it sounds like. But that doesn't really explain to me how smaller base building would work. You know? Like if this is building modules and stuff all in one, and it can go up to an extra large building, then what are the smaller vehicles doing, you know? Like surely the small vehicles are going to be able to build turrets and stuff, but they won't be able to build the big turrets, I guess. So like you're going to put like a size 5 turret, it's going to be like size 3 turrets or something. But I'm really only interested in the ability to build the mining and refining facilities and stuff. If you can build repair, refining, and like mining stuff, then this would fix a whole lot of issues with ships. Like being able to build a refinery would be probably the most important thing, because then you could just harvest all the materials that you need around. You put refining and mining together. You start producing metals. You refill the Pioneer, and then you start building more stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this though. The what's up, Mustang? Came in right at the end. We're going over the Pioneer a little bit. I can go back and show you this thing though, but I got a suspicion that the legendary citizen, the legendary person from CitizenCon's past is this guy who does this speech. I think it's this guy. Sort of. Maybe. If it's not a real person, I think it's this guy.
Stars. They've become such a familiar backdrop of our day-to-day life that it's easy to forget what they mean. That one. That little dot right there. That's Bremen. And this one over here, that's Saul. Think about that. Just a handful of these dots represents the breadth of human expansion. Another handful, and you've got Bannon, Jean, even Van Duel.
This is 7 years ago.
That's everything we've ever known. Every piece of art, every life, ever, right there. In 2 handfuls of dots. Now that means there's so much more to find. Behind every one of those points of light is a story waiting to be discovered. Now in our distant past, it was the province of governments to explore and understand space. The simple launch took resources and money beyond the capacity of even the largest companies. But then RSI introduced the Zeus, and suddenly regular people were able to explore our solar system, allowing an unprecedented amount of knowledge to be discovered. When Nick Croshaw discovered the first jump point, the modified scanner array that allowed him to search for jump points were far too expensive for the civilian market. But once that technology was refined and open to the public, what happened? That's right, an era of expansion that led us from this to this. And that's how it's always been. If you look at all the great eras of human history, whenever innovation has put technology in the hands of the people, it has heralded sweeping discoveries, Because power in the hands of many will always exceed the power of few. So while we can now discover new jump points and systems, there's still one hurdle that remains. That's what to do once you discover a new planet. Because right now, only the largest corporations can terraform and establish settlements. Easy. We haven't simplified terraforming yet. No, I'm here to announce something equally exciting. Albert Einstein, the man who redefined human understanding of the universe, he once said, "The person who follows the crowd will usually go no further than the crowd. The person who walks alone is likely to find himself in places no one has ever seen before." An insightful sentiment meant to inspire thinkers and creators to push the boundaries of their understanding. It was, after all, said 1,000 years ago, before humanity had left our homeworld. So clearly he was speaking metaphorically. Today, as I just showed you, the unknown is out there, waiting to be discovered. For those that are looking for those places that no one has seen before, they are faced with a daunting challenge. What do you do when you get there? Up until now, it's been the province of governments and corporations to pave the way for sustained habitation. The power has been in the hands of the few. What if I offered you the ability to build your own settlement? To bring civilization to the most untamed of frontiers? A colony ship in the truest sense of the word. And I'm not talking about just transporting people, no. I'm talking about an all-in-one solution designed to build modular structures based on your needs. Capable of building a farm or a habitat, a trading post or a mining operation. I mean, that'd be crazy, right? Allow me to introduce the Pioneer. With that, let the new age of colonization begin.
Now, it doesn't fully make a ton of sense, for him to show up again, but he's the only animated character that I can remember from Citizen Cons that ever made like a speech. And he is the guy who invented civilian colonization, basically, in the game. Where's my Discord? Oh. But yeah, I was just looking over stuff with the Pioneer because I keep thinking about it, and part of like the Q&A and stuff talks about it builds outposts, and then you have to buy the expansions and stuff that go with it. But then other parts it talks about you you get the materials for the outpost, and then you also get the materials and stuff for the expansions, and it builds them all together. So I'm confused on that. But the different sizes of buildings as well. So we know that there's a small ground vehicle, then there's the bigger ground vehicle, and then the Galaxy potentially, and then the Pioneer. But do you really need a Pioneer to like build resource extractors? Yeah. Well, that's what I'm trying to picture out in my head though, is like surely you can build a mining drill or something with like a size like the medium sized vehicle, you know? Basically, do we need a base? Like, do we need to be able to build bases on a planet to stay there? long term, or can we just sit in our ships? You know? I don't know what the best call would be. Yeah, I mean, Fortress would be good. I like the idea of the Pioneer because it feels like, when you play the RTS, like RTS games, you drop down and you build your base and then you slowly gather resources and build more buildings. Yeah, yeah. I know limited oxygen's a big deal, but I don't know how many outpost things that you can build either, like next to each other. We haven't seen any big outposts in the game. Like they have mining outposts and stuff, but they're only ever like 2 or 3 buildings and a few landing pads. So you'd have to have hydroponics for oxygen production, but it doesn't. I mean, if there's planets that have oxygen that you can refill on, that'd be good. Or maybe a starfare. I feel like the starfare is potentially something that could pull oxygen. There's not that many ships that I could see producing oxygen. You have like the Odyssey, and the Endeavor. I think that's something people don't think about with the Endeavor either. Those farming modules that you're supposed to be able to put on the Endeavor, recycling food and water and oxygen. Then you just have like a little oxygen refill station. But the other thing with the base building stuff is they talk about the different types of modules or the different types of modules and halves that you can build, and one of them is a medical module. And he says the goal is for you to be able to respawn in the medical module, which makes me think it's a tier 2 or tier 3 bed. So, if you're able to build medical module buildings on a planet, do you need a medical ship when you could just land, build you a hospital, respawn and stuff on the ground? And then the other part is, are you going to be able to get all of your mining materials and stuff off of the planet for the Pioneer to make more buildings? Or are planets going to have specific resources that you can get, but you can't continue building? You'd have to ship in more and more minerals. Because if you're going to do like ground mining, for instance, and we can only mine gems, then you'd have to set up a mining laser on the ground, mine and try to find your iron and your aluminum and all of that stuff, and then refine it, which you'd either need a refinery ship like the Expanse on top of the Pioneer, or you'd have to be able to build a refinery outpost on the planet and then produce metals, restock the Pioneer to build another structure. Otherwise, you're going to have to fly the Pioneer back and forth from one side of space to the other. And when that thing's loaded, it's going to be worth a ton of money. You're like 600 SEU of like minerals and supplies on that thing. It would be prime pirate target. And also like the whole ship is like a big machine. So if it takes any damage, you don't know how hard it is to repair either, you know? But transporting one of those ground vehicles would be way easier. Like that Atlas-sized ground vehicle for base building, you stick one of those on the Liberator, and if it could do the bulk, like if it could build a small refinery or some mining lasers, I think that's all you'd really need. Yeah. Well, in this panel, they said that the minimum crew is 4 and the max is 8, which I don't know if that's changed because it's supposed to be like an org base now. But It has 4 remote turrets. It's huge as hell. But if you only needed 4 people to fly it, you could fly it in a fleet pretty easily. But I don't know. And also, like when it talks about different building types, I have to find the thing again. But the different building types that it had repairs slated on it. Also, this right here, they're talking about what exploration ships are doing for the planetary stuff.
But to get that knowledge, you've got to go and find that area to figure out what's there. Is it right for you? And that's where all the exploration ships come in. You could take your Pioneer and do all this with your Pioneer, but it's probably not going to be the best ship for scouting locations. We've got a whole wealth of exploration ships that are designed for finding that information out. It's like you wouldn't take your oil rig out into the ocean and just randomly dot it down until you found what you wanted. They send the scouts out to find the best locations. So the ships you mentioned there's just a small range of the exploration ships, like the 315P, Terrapin, Carrack. All exploration, all have slightly different pros and strengths. So you've got the single ones, you've got the big crews, and they're just there to help find where you want to send your Pioneer to.
I do think some of that's already in the game though, because it's been a while, but a long time ago I used the Terrapin and I flew over a planet, and you could see when you ran over a cave, you could see all the minerals under the ground with the Terrapin.
You might find a nice location, but if you went there in your Pioneer, you're never going to find out where the nearest refinery, like Tony talked about. You could build it and you find it's millions of miles away, and that's going to be a waste. So these exploration ships are really sort of key to finding those places.
Yeah, and one of the things we're aiming to do is make sure that there's a lot of gameplay associated with these high-level concepts. And by that I mean, if you discover, if you're working your long-range scanners, you may find a previously unknown body, an asteroid that no one else within the system knows about, and there is a level of value related to that. If you work your dials a little bit and you've got the proper equipment and the skills, then without actually having to make the journey, you could increase the potential value of that of that knowledge find by being able to discern, the mass of the object. A large asteroid is going to be, all things, being equal, be worth more than a smaller asteroid. But if you really want to ratchet it up, and this kind of goes back to the degrees of knowledge that I was talking about, if you actually make the journey to it, fly over, burn fuel, burn time, brave whatever dangers are between you and there, and you actually do a fly over the surface, then you may actually just visually see pools of hydrocarbons, gas venting from the surface, and again that raises up what you know about it all the more. If you really want to get specific about what's there and maximize the potential value of that find, though, then you're going to have to set down on the surface, and you're going to take core samples, and you're going to basically have these processed, analyzed, and you're going to do things like seismographic surveys and have et cetera, et cetera. And so all of this plays into a common theme that we're trying to execute upon, which is all of these high-level ideas and stuff have a variety of different ways by which the player community can basically attack them, and by which these things will feed the outputs of one into the inputs of another.
So now that Tony's kind of giving you a high-level idea.
So he's talking about exploration ships, taking core samples, scanning all of that. You can see like the Terrapin though, like when I flew it last over a surface, you could see the minerals in a ground when you're near a cave. And I could see like having a lot of exploration ships being able to land, do your ground missions, fly around, and being able to find caves and random stuff a lot easier. But then they keep showing these maps like this, where it's like these topographical maps, and it makes me think that maybe the Expanse, or the not the Expanse, the Endeavor with the telescope array this might be what you're looking at, where you can like zoom in on a planet from miles away and see like these hot spots or something.
Of
But
what land is and how we value it. I'm going to talk about actually claiming your land. So, first and foremost,
well, it's like it makes sense to me. Like if you had an endeavor and you could zoom in on a planet and figure out what you're dealing with before you go, then you could load up your Pioneer with whatever you need. If you're using exploration ships, you'd have to fly over there and then hope that you had the right stuff. I think either way, you're basically going to be stuck leaving the Pioneer at your home base until you're ready to move it over to an area. But I just don't. It's hard to like. How practical is the Pioneer going to be? Because you don't really want it to be out there all the time. It's just it's a manufacturing facility. You want to like have somebody that you know that has one and wants to build bases all day. I don't know if we
and
necessarily, but you also get a land claim if you buy one, which would be nice. We could get like a piece of land over by the prison or something.
claims are not tied to the Pioneer. You know, a single person organization can buy them, so on and so forth. If you do, you can get the UEE will actually take a cut of that in a title transfer cost. We're doing
much, then you may elect to basically wait to harvest whatever it holds until.
Oh yeah, the way he talks right here too is he makes it seem like you do a survey of the ground, it tells you what's in the ground and then you can collect it or not. But he makes it seem like it refreshes, so you have to continually update your surveys and stuff all the time. Or it makes it sound like if you mined in the ground and you took all the resources out, then if you came back later, they would be there again.
Those particular commodities have price.
I mean, we'll build it at some point. We'll get it going, but it's a lot of work to build an org for sure. I think being able to provide a supply line to like help people earn their stuff in game could be a good drive, but a lot of the people in game right now already have a bunch of ships. I want to try and do some ground mining tests.
Price.
Well, I mean, I can find people to play with in the game, but I mean, even if my org doesn't take off very quickly, then I mean, I have other orgs that I know that I can play with if I really want to, but it's I don't know. But I've already been kind of curious about the ground mining stuff because like right now no one does it because everyone already has a bunch of ships that they can buy and whatnot in game. But like the Carrack, for example, you have the Pisces and the Carrack. You could potentially hold like 4 more rock miners in there. But instead of having the Carrack fly around and do everything because it's kind of sluggish when you're landing at like mining spots, you could just have like a fleet of Pisces and then some things like the Freelancer or the Aquila, have your org guys run around in those ships doing ground missions, and then scan and find those pockets of minerals and stuff on the ground, mine them, and then instead of having to go all the way back and sell it, and then come all the way back to the planet, you could just load them onto the Carrack. Because like the Pisces and all that could just bring all the boxes, go out, pick up swap out one SCU boxes, bring them back to the Carrack, and then you would just bring the whole Carrack load with everyone's stuff back to base after everyone's done farming materials and stuff for the day. But no one does that right now. But I also want to start working on um, using ground vehicles, Caterpillar. I mean, like the thing, it isn't the cargo space that is the big deal. The thing is that the Carrack, it's an exploration ship. The Caterpillar isn't, and it potentially has more utility, being able to scan and map jump points so everyone can travel to an area of unknown space easier. It might have repair facilities or something on it. I'm not sure, but also it can hold more ground vehicles. Um, it's better for fleet assaults and ground assaults, attacking people's bases and whatnot. Potentially could be a mobile hospital. It's there's a lot of benefits with the Carrack, but the and it can hold like 400 SU of cargo. So like right now, if we had, let's say we had 4 people, if we were doing hand mining or something with caves, you could just like have like 4 PCs, or you'd have 2 PCs, and you'd fly out. People get out at the caves, they mine, they load the 1 SU boxes in the back of the Pisces, and then you just fly the Pisces back to the Carrack, drop it off, grab more boxes, and keep going. But I'm just curious how much money that you could make doing that, because the other day, like, yeah, I don't like the Ironclad. I'm sure is going to be a good ship. It just doesn't. It doesn't necessarily fit with what I'm trying to do at the moment. I like the idea of being able to, like, it has repair facilities. It's like the Ironclad is like a mix of like the Liberator and the Crucible in one ship, sort of, which would be good. It's hard to say though until they tell us exactly what can fit on top of those external pads and can still travel. Because if the Liberator can hold a Connie or something on top of it, that I Liberator 100%. I don't necessarily care about the guns. Yeah, I know what it has. Everyone made a big deal about the top hanger opening. They keep saying it's a carrier. Thing is that you don't know if the repair capabilities in that ship can actually repair any snub ships or anything that you put on it. It only shows it being like a separate vehicle repair bay. But I think that ship is more for like if you want to land on a planet's surface and you want to stay there for a while and like have a base just with one ship, I think that one probably would fit it pretty well. But I'm just not sold on it. I don't Everybody wants it to be a carrier. Everyone, that's basically what everyone wants it for. Yeah, but I mean, like people who cargo haul want it because it's heavily armored and it has a lot of cargo space. But a lot of the people that are buying it want it because it's a carrier for them. They want it to be able to hold like 2 to 4 ships inside of it and then fly it out the top and go combat with it. And then, yeah, I just don't. And then the ship also has like a number of weak spots as well. Um, the command module is a big spot on that ship. I think it's armored to the teeth, but like I think the command module is the weak spot. But see, but when you're saying troop and vehicle transport, you got to think like, is that what you want to use it for? Because the Liberator can carry troops and vehicles. Liberator can't hold 5 tanks. I mean, on the inside potentially, but can hold a good amount of ground vehicles. And I'm not sure how useful tanks are at the moment.
And it sounds simple, but there's a lot of ripple effects to where we get really interesting knock-on gameplay effects. And by this I mean from, but of course, your own sensor do basically the equivalent. You can also do that.
Collect materials and add-ons from different stores. So you'll get materials from TDDs or refineries, and you'll be able to pick up some of the add-ons like Tony was talking.
I mean, I get that the ground, they're both capable of doing it. One of them has the repair bay though, or whatever the hell the other thing is. I don't remember. It's like a secured cargo area or something, or a brig. I I think the tank is useful in attacking a base, yes, but I don't know how useful having a tank is in general as just going around with the tank. Like, you could have 4 to 6 Ursa rovers, or you can have one tank. That's where things are kind of split. But there's a lot of things that are going to be good for like attacking the ground. I don't necessarily think that I don't necessarily think that the Ironclad is going to be the best ground assault ship though. It's not like see, but I don't like the Nova. The regular tank seems like it's more of an anti-ground vehicle thing than an anti-ship thing. The Storm AA only has missiles. The Atlas platforms, or I think they're the Atlas platforms, whatever the long vehicles are, those seem like the best anti-air, anti-troop defense ships or ground vehicles. Because some of those they have like size 2 or size 3 Gatling guns, size 5 and size 7 torps or whatever, you know. I think I would prefer to have those over a tank for the most part. But when you think about the ironclad assault or whatever, ironclad assaults to me is like a fort. It's you land on the ground, you open the door, and it becomes a fort. But when you see the ironclad assault is like an attack drop ship for like tanks going out the front, you got to realize that it still only has one door. So if somebody destroys a tank coming out of that front door, all of them get stuck. So it's kind of in the middle. Compare that to the Carrack. If you take a Carrack down to the planet surface, you land, and the cargo pods open. You have 3 cargo pods with a vehicle on either side that can just drive out as soon as the pods open. You'd have 6 Ursas just flying out quick. But I can easily see the Ironclad being a base, like a ground base. Like you fly in, you have, maybe a couple of tanks in there, or I think people focus a bit too much on the tanks. Like if I was in that ship, I would probably have like some Ursa rovers, some Cyclones or whatever, some ballistas, stuff like that. You unload those, so you land that ship on the ground, you activate its doors and all that, you unload your ground vehicles, and you go and start doing missions and collecting stuff. mining, collecting, killing NPCs, taking loot, and loading it on the ship. That's what I kind of see it as. If someone attacks you when you're on the ground, it's an extremely armored box with one way in, well, maybe like two ways in, you know. The Atlas doesn't open. I don't know anything about the Atlas, not wanting to open, but
Talking about remote sensors or extractors, solar panels, moisture extractors, geothermal pumps, landing pads, turrets, that kind of stuff. Now, what is very important to understand is if any of you have ever done home projects, know what you're building so that you don't do 5 trips to Hornbach to build something. So if you know what you're building and then you know the
yeah, they don't open right now, but they should in the future. So that's the general gist. I mean, you can only really do what they tell you is going to happen for the most part, but my only problem with the cargo pods right now is that if they fit all the Ursas in them that I'm wanting them to, I don't know how much room you're going to have in there to get in and out of the Ursas, or get in and out of the cargo area. So if you stick people in those Ursas in the bottom, they might be stuck there. So you'd basically have to park the Ursas in there, forward facing, and then you'd have to load people up in space in the Ursa, seal them in, and then drop on the planet.
resources that you'll save yourself multiple trips, or it will be one of those things where you'll need to have these resources brought to you. So what do you want from your outpost? What's your gameplay intent? Do you want to be a moisture farmer and
But if you're mining or whatever too, if an Ursa fits on either side of those cargo pods, that's potentially 2 rovers on each side, which would be, I mean, you could at least get 4 regular or 4 rocks in the front. So then you would have 4 in each cargo pod if everything worked that way. Yeah, you'd have 16 rock miners and 1 Carrack. I don't know. I don't feel like it's that big in there though. I feel like an Ursa could fit on either side, but I guess the rocks would have to fit as well if the Ursa does.
live and respawn there and basically look out over this beautiful beach, or do you want it to be like a revenue generator? So basically you'll swoop. So Mars's alignment. Well, you're working the and so with this, depending on what you're doing, each one of them is going to require a different amount of power. And then that starts going into some of the add-ons. So if you're mining or if you're doing something that's very, very power intensive, growing things.
See here it says mining and refining on the bottom. I might just wait and see if the Pioneer, like, I don't really want to spend $900 on a Pioneer. See, but this right here, basically it shows interior options for your habitation stuff. So you got like your normal habitation, an armory, storage, med station, mining, refining, hydroponics. But these all seem like they're separate buildings, and I don't know if you can build them right next to each other or not. And I don't know if they interconnect at all. Because if you have a hydroponics building, are you able to connect that to a mining and refining building? Because everywhere that there's an outpost on a planet right now, they're all separated into individual stuff. But also in the Pioneers discussion, they say that the Pioneers for players that want to build a home for an org or people that want to manage NPCs, which makes me think that if you build um, outposts, then you could potentially have NPCs come and like pick up and drop off supplies and stuff. Well, the thing is that rock miners can't mine metals like they mine gems. So right now, like I'm trying to start mining more and doing more caves and more ground mining stuff. And you could use a Cutlass Black. I don't think it necessarily cares, but um, the whole thing is that a Carrack would be able to help store more boxes in a safe area. Basically, like you're trying to make a hub. Essentially, is what you're doing. Like it's I'm trying to make a hub for org. Like right now, everyone that like you take your Cutlass Black, you go mine, and then you're mining, and then you're going and dropping off your cargo at the station, and that's what everyone does. Nobody works in a group, so like nobody's mining and then dropping the shit like the stuff off at another ship and having them take it. Um, I tried to do that in the past with salvage, where like I went and salvaged ships, and then I was trying to find cargo haulers that wanted to come and take the cargo and sell it and give me a bit of the profit. But then no one would come and do it. Well, there's a website that you can use to find caves. So my main thing right now is because when I live on the planet surface, I'm usually around Daymar. Well, it's patience and convenience for the most part. Like no one will do anything if there's risk to it, because that's what happens with all the games. So they're always going to do the thing that has the least amount of risk and stuff. But in my head, working in a group with a hub like that makes more sense to lower risk to some degree, I think, sort of. Because if you have, let's say you have 4 ships that go and rock mine on their own, they load all of their minerals onto a Carrack. You could say that, if somebody robbed the Carrack, then, you're going to have problems. But if y'all all are gathering up and going to the station at the end of the day after you mine, you've saved more time, not having to do as many trips, which means more minerals to sell, and you're traveling in a group to drop everything off, which should be safer. But it's not convenient for people. Um, But all I really want, like, to know with this is that, because we know that the Pioneer can do extra large buildings. So is an extra large mining or refining thing better than like a medium one? I would assume yes. But if that medium vehicle can produce like a mining and refining building and then power supplies, it'd be good. I mean, yeah, there's a chance to backstab, but I mean, that's org gameplay. That is dynamic gameplay. And also, like, in order for them to backstab, they would have to give up your position. Like that Carrick could be anywhere. Any planet surface, anywhere in space. So they would have to give your location out to somebody, and then they would have to come in and attack you without you being able to get away. But it's also, I think, kind of more interesting because like ground missions and stuff right now, if you go and do them solo, you'll have NPCs and ships and stuff show up and destroy your ship. Like I tried to do some simple early game missions with the Pisces the other day, and as soon as I landed, my ship was just KO'd before I could even do anything. But in that same situation, if I had a crew, they could have flown me in, dropped me off with the Pisces, and then flew that ship back out. The NPC ships would have showed up, and then we could have called in like the Carrack or whatever to come and fight them while the Pisces came and picked us up and put us back on the ship, which would be more. Well, that's my plan for this week. I mean, if you're down, we can, but I uh I basically got kept up the last couple days. I was super tired and I'm still worn out right now, but the my plan right now is that I'm going to go back towards Jumptown. I'll probably play, but it'll probably be this afternoon because I'm probably going to lay back down. My sleep schedule's all messed up, so I just woke up, but I'm also like still really tired because I was up 30 hours. I got 3 hours of sleep, then I was up 30 hours, then I got 5 hours of sleep, then I was up um like 14 hours, and then I got 3 hours of sleep and I was up for 24 hours. And then I woke up this morning, came over here, and I was still feeling bad. But yeah. Well, there's I don't know exactly where these are, but there's a website. Um Probably I don't know if that's a good time for you or not, but um it'll still be a little rough with two people probably, but we could just use we could park the Carrack somewhere, and then if you have like a freelancer or something, we could load rock miners on the freelancer, and then I can keep spare rock miners on the Carrack. So if one of them gets destroyed or something, we can just grab another one. But this website apparently, there are ways to find caves that have already been found, but the directions are kind of complicated. but apparently, so this TPF or whatever right here and ArcCorp Mining Area 141 are next to Junktown, which is like in here. And I used to live in this desert right here between this security post and this. I lived like right in here for a long time. And I would go back and forth to these posts. But apparently there's caves somewhere in these areas. I don't know exactly where. If we can find those, I'm curious on mining those and then going to Jumptown and these other locations to farm items and guns. And then I don't know how often the gems respawn in the caves, but I also know caves are a pain in the ass. So if you fall in a hole or something in a cave, a lot of times you can't get out. So you'd have to have like party members drug you and like tractor beam you out or something. But yeah, I'm gonna try and find a cave that's in the area of Jumptown somewhere because I like the idea of being able to use Jumptown as a ground base. And then if the Jumptown event was going on, like being able to have a cave that you could hide loot in could also be good. So you just drop boxes down in the cave hole and then fly back over to Jumptown and drop more boxes in the cave hole. And that would be kind of interesting. But I want to take Jumptown for a base at some point. I try to find some of the other Jumptown locations on other planets, but it took me forever. If you don't have like a waypoint to find those bases on the other planets, you run out of gas. Because I did it in the Andromeda the other day, and I ran out of fuel trying to find Jumptown on a Hurston or something. Echo Echo Island. Um, but this Jumptown isn't hard to find. But we can land somewhere near Jumptown or at Jumptown. I don't care. If we had more people, I would say just take Jumptown. But probably just park out in the desert and then go around and try to find Hadnite and um, caves. But I'd probably just do ground missions, and then if we see if we see caves or Hadnite, pick it up, and then just throw everything into the ship, the store it, and then we can pick up sniper rifles and stuff at Jumptown. Those good snipers. But also, if we got more people, I would like to start learning how to use ground vehicles effectively in combat, because I don't know their detection ranges and stuff like that. But say, for instance, Brio's Breaker Yard or wherever it is over here. Also, this Kudro ore is mines, and there's caves around here apparently that have areas. So Brio's Breaker Yard is we saw that there's a wreck site near there that was spawning NPC ships. So if we had enough people, we could land ground vehicles around Brio's Breaker Yard and wait for players to go and try and drop stuff off there. Shoot them down with the ground vehicles, depending on what the detection range is. But also, we could shoot down NPC ships going to the wreck site near Brio's Breaker Yard, and then have people go there and salvage it, which I think would be kind of interesting. But the same goes for like Ghost Hollow. If you had enough stuff in Ghost Hollow, just park vehicles around it, shoot all the Ghost Hollow ships down. And since most of the people that fight over Ghost Hollow use spaceships, um, they might not expect it. I'm just curious how effective ground vehicles would be against spaceships in combat, because a lot of the dog fighters and stuff are using spaceship versus spaceship. All the PvP fights I've seen are spaceship versus spaceship. If we could get good at ground vehicles and at least be a big enough threat to keep spaceships off of our boys, I think that's probably like the best of both worlds. Because eventually, you know, you're only going to have so many spaceships, and a $500,000 ground vehicle versus like a $4 million spaceship is probably a good trade. But I'm probably going to go back to bed here in a second because I'm still pretty worn out. I don't really feel very good, to be honest, but I don't know what it is yet. Like it might be because I haven't ate a whole lot, but I also kind of feel like it's like my organs hurt from not having sleep. So, all right, man. I'll try to get on later. It's 7:38 right now, so I'll lay down for a little bit. If I feel better, I'll hop on this afternoon. All right. See you, man. I'll make some Discord channels at some point for stream talking and mining and all that, and then I want to get the names of like the ships that we have. Yeah, I probably I don't know. I'm not. I don't feel super hungry, but I don't feel super 100% either. I kind of like the idea of stew, but
Stew takes forever to make.
yeah, I got some beef in there at some point, but
Yeah, just eat something. If you're not feeling well, eat something light. Then go to sleep because if you're gonna go to bed, don't eat something heavy because you'll feel worse when you wake up.
yeah,
So avoid bread. Just eat something light
I think
because the
it's
issue is you've been awake. You was awake for so long and asleep, then awake for so long and asleep. Your body has not replenished any energy, most likely because you haven't been eating. Because
yeah,
that's how the body replenishes a lot of its energy as well, is through food. And if there's not a food in the system, no matter how much sleep you get, you're not going to feel better. You're going to feel worse.
yeah. I just I wish I didn't get woke up in the morning on my work days and stuff, but that's what's really doing it right now is like cuz like pretty much every week I get woke up at least one day or whatever in the morning, and then
Why?
cuz my family bothers me or calls me, or the people at my work call me at like 8 a.m. I get off at 5 a.m. I'm usually home like at 6 or 7, and then I go to
My question
sleep.
is, are you working at 8 o'clock in the morning?
No, but
Then
they
put your fucking phone in silent.
yeah, but they call you. Like I have to answer. But that's when they work, so they call me when they show up. But if someone
I've
wakes me up in the morning, I can't go back to sleep, and then I'm up all day
yeah.
long, and then
The
I'm like,
problem is, whilst you're not at work, you are not obligated to answer the phone. You're off shift.
yeah,
You're not obligated to. And if they go, why don't you answer the phone? You go, okay, how about you come off a long shift and I wake you up. I call you 3 hours after you fell asleep every single fucking week, see how you feel. And they go, well, you better not fucking do it. It's like, oh, you carry on, I will. And they'll stop real quick.
yeah. It's
Because the problem
combination.
is, you let people walk all over you. That's why they do it each week, because they know they can call you, wake you up, and you're not going to do anything about it. And you don't have to answer. Legally and morally, you do not have to answer. You are off shift. You must have at least 8 hours between shifts. So technically, they're not meant to call you until 8 hours after that's ended.
Mm,
So if you're not at work, don't answer the call. And they go, why didn't you answer the call? It's like, was I booked into work when you called me? They go, no, well, there's your fucking answer.
Yeah, I don't need any work drama right now, but I like my job. It's nice. It's a
They take the
combination of
piss out
that
of you.
and then just it's that and family stuff. So it's just like um uh what was it? Yeah,
Um,
yesterday I got off and then um my family had called me at like 8 and then they wanted me to go to the place in Ardmore or whatever to buy glasses. So like the and then
what?
yeah, because I've had the same pair of glasses for like 10 years and
Mm-hmm.
so they wanted me to get new glasses. So they ended up making an appointment or whatever for me to go over there and then nobody was gonna go. Like when they woke me up, nobody was ready to go and then by the time we got over there it was like 12 and then we had to go to someone else's house and they had a water leak and there wasn't anything that we could really do to fix it. So, but then they griped about it for 4 or 5 hours, and then so we were messing with that, and then we came back and the dryer had been broken over here. So then we had
Do you know
messed with
what I
that
tell
dryer
them
for
to
like
do? I would have gone, we made your appointment, go fuck yourself, click.
yeah, but
My family is not my family. They knows if it's my day off and it's not important, they know to leave me the fuck alone because if they wake me up, they will pay for it. Because I will
yeah,
be in the most foul mood you can imagine.
my family
And
doesn't
they
work like that because my parents basically it's do what they say when they tell you or else, and they have fucking problems. So like
do you live in a house?
no, but they
Then
live
no, you don't.
close enough to be a pain in my ass. I mean,
Do you know what you do? They showed up, it's like, why didn't you do as you're told? Am I a fucking child? No, so get the fuck off my property. Done.
yeah, but
Simple.
my parents are not. Well, my mom's all right. My dad's not so stable. He's a guy he'll end up like doing some petty shit or shooting something or
Unfortunately,
ripping something down.
you have what we call pushover syndrome. That's
Uh,
what you suffer with.
I mean, it's
So
not
you're
pushover
so used to
necessarily.
being.
It's just that I know that there's punishments for things. It just doesn't ever seem to happen to other people.
Then do you know what that is? That's also pushover syndrome because they know if they punish you, you're not going to do it again. Pushover syndrome, also mixed with bitch boy syndrome. Here, they tried to do that with me, my family. They realized no matter how much they punished me, if I didn't want to do something, I'm not fucking doing it. It's not happening. So they gave up. And now they don't bother me with it. Because
I
they know
mean,
no matter what they do, I don't care.
yeah, but I mean, there's no reason for me just to not do anything for them. I mean, that's just
Okay, there's nothing wrong with you doing something for them, but if it's them calling you up just after you finish work, waking you up, messing with your sleep schedule, making you feel like absolute shit, then wanting to treat you like you're a convenient servant, no. Not that how that works. You're family. You're not their employee.
yeah. But I mean, he does a lot of stuff for me as well, and Monday's the only day that we both have off at the same time. So
So what does he call you on you every weekend?
it's
So
usually
every Monday.
well, pretty much every Monday we're doing something, and
Mm-hmm.
then he'll well he used to show up at my house all the time, like every single morning.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't do that as much because he used to just barge into my house 24/7, and he doesn't do that anymore. But
How many times have you almost shot him?
I don't shoot him because I'm a lot more level-headed and disciplined than he is. I keep my family together because there's so much drama between all my family members. They would be at each other's throats every 2 seconds if I wasn't keeping the peace.
It's hard to keep family drama away when the family itself is the drama. That's the problem.
Yeah, but people.
When the family's the issue, there's not much you can do. I learned that the hard way for years.
Yeah,
Because no matter what I do, drama's gonna happen.
well, it's just
Shit's gonna happen.
people don't see their own issues. Is my problem. Like we had
No, no.
was it there was a car or something. My older sister gave a car to my younger sister. She didn't have a way to get it. My dad ended up picking it up. It was over here, broke down for a long time, and then he had fixed it. And then him and my sister, younger sister, had made a deal that if they sold it, they would split the money. And then he had
Mhm.
ended up having it in his yard for a long time, and then gave it to somebody for them to help him with something. And then uh, everything blew up because my sister was like, "Well, you said that if you got rid of it, then we would split the money." And then he's saying that he can't do anything and or whatever because it's just always basically he just wanted to get rid of it because it was taking up space and uh,
So pretty much every single person in your family is selfish and self-serving. Essentially, they don't
yeah.
care about each other, only their own interests.
Well, that's most people in general that I've met in my life these days. It's not gotten any better.
You you live in America, the land of the selfish and the
Yeah.
greedy. Yes, I know. Everyone's out to fuck each everyone over to better their lives. That's how America runs. To make
Yeah.
your life happy, you must make someone else's life miserable. That's America. We all know that. Over here, that's why we take the piss out of America so much.
Well, that's why I never really got into sales because I had a guy who played football with me that tried to get me to go into sales, and then I don't like the idea of
Conning
making
people out of
people.
their money.
Well, it's like making people buy something just for me to have a paycheck. Anytime I've ever sold anything, it's like it's never been that big of a deal if I sold it or not. Or like I could
Your
easily be
entire
like,
paycheck doesn't ride upon it.
yeah, like I don't want to be like, if I don't make this sale, then I don't eat this week, and then end up pushing a product on somebody. Like obviously, because there's a lot of times now where it's like people have money issues around here, and it's because they
Hmm.
spend too much damn money on everything all the time, and they have to have the best food, and they have to have like the best looking apartments, and they work at like a fast food place, and you can
Yeah.
do a lot if you don't spend your money all the time, and so I don't
It's
really.
unfortunately it's vanity. People want to look wealthier than they are. It's like me. People go, "Why do you not do this or get this or get this?" I go, "You look poor." I go, "I don't care if I look poor." I go, "Why?" I'm going because my style is what you would call a poor man's style. I like leather. The
Hmm.
fun part is my leather jacket costs more than the entire fucking fake outfit they're wearing. It's like I'm wearing quality clothes. You think I might look poor? My jacket is worth more than your entire outfit, and it's lasted me years and years and years and years. Never a single issue with it. Waterproof. It doesn't tear. It's quality,
Yeah.
and that's the most I've ever spent on on a piece of clothing. It's £300 for a jacket.
I spend more on stuff these days just because I've gotten kind of used to it. Like college and stuff, they'd force you to spend like $500 on a textbook you never use. And now it's
No,
like
yeah,
a lot of times when people tell me that something expensive and not worth it, then in my mind, because like I wanted to do like new plumbing on this house that I was at, and I was like, I'll just pay a plumber, and people were like, no, you gotta do it cheap. And then so we went through like 5 years of bullshit with this stuff like breaking all the time. And
and you're like, it would have been simplified so much just to fucking get a plumber, do it once, and then save you all the hassle.
yeah, because I mean, it's like that leak that's at that person's house right now. They're gonna want us to try and go and fix it. It's gonna be a pain in the ass. And then he was like, it's not worth it to pay a plumber because they'll do like a 3 hour minimum with like 100 and something dollars an hour, and they'll be there all day, and it'll cost you like $2,000. But in my head, it's like a water pipe can last a lifetime. You know,
What would
two
you rather?
two thousand
Do something
dollars.
right the first time, or continuously spend money fixing up your own fuck ups? I know what I'll do.
Well, it's just like for
I'd
me,
rather
it's
I'd
the
rather debate the
investment
bullet.
though. Like
Hmm.
you like the dryer's broken, and then everyone's like making me move in like three different broken dryers to see if we can make them work. I was like, I'll just go buy a dryer for like $500, and they say it's too expensive, but it's like the dryer it's a convenience. It lasts many years and it saves time. $500 is not that big of a deal in the grand picture of things.
Do you know
It's
what
like,
they should do? This is something that the British population has, the UK population had learned years ago, and it saves us so much money and time. Get a fucking washing line. Put it outside, hang your clothes. All it costs you is time, no money. Oh look, my clothes are dry. I haven't spent $500 on something that's gonna break down. My God, it's just a piece of wire that goes across, and I hang it with pegs. It's a miracle.
yeah,
Fucking, why do you think we call Americans stupid?
well, they're just lazy
Because
in
they are.
general.
Exactly. It's like
We
gold
had
pot instead of.
we had a
It's,
clothesline at the farmhouse a long time ago, but I don't remember how often we used it. It was just on the back. But
it's because laziness.
the only problem is that when it rains and stuff, it'll
That
but
then do you know what you do? You have something called an error. So you call something called an error. It's like a washing line, but it's like it's a foldable out version. You just hang your clothes on it, and you can put it inside. It dries. No money costs to dry it. Just does it. No, just does it naturally. It's amazing. I can make Americans look like the dumbest people on the planet just by the simplest things you could think of. I can look at Americans how much they spend, and I could go, "This saves you money. This saves you money. This saves you money. This saves you money." And all you got to do is a little bit of manual labor, and they go, "No, I'd rather pay it." Go, "Well, that's because you're lazy." And they go, "What's worth more to you, money or getting shit done?"
a
They
lot of
will
them
go,
overstress themselves though too. So it's but like around here there's a lot of manual labor jobs. So like there's guys that do work their ass off and they make decent money, but they also work like 7 days a week and but they usually have like like either a stay-at-home wife or they have like, someone that has like a job on the side, but
a stay-at-home wife who would cook and clean and then complain about the dryer when they're at home all day doing nothing. They could easily do it themselves and just put it on a washing line, save
yeah.
time because half the time they'll be sitting there doing nothing whilst the man's at work
See, but
doing all the work. Then
that's
come
how
home, they
American
complain.
women work though. They don't like the nice things. They like being able to brag about nice stuff and having the nice stuff. They don't want any inconveniences.
The problem is, women are not women anymore. Women are bloodsuckers. They will suck the blood out of a man until he's got nothing left. Then once they run out of money, they move on to the next person. We are just conveniently over. All they care about is how much we earn and what we can give them. That's it. All they care about. They don't care that we're human. They don't care that we're living beings. They think they can give us the minimal amount of care and we'll get on our hands and knees for them. But no, not how that works. Here, I've had women say to me, if you want me to date you, you need to make so much. I go, how about you go jump off a fucking cliff? And they go, well, you're lucky I'm even here. They go, no, it's actually unlucky that you're here. Go, why? I said, I want to actually a girlfriend in my life, not a fucking vampire.
Yeah.
And they don't like me. I'm honest. That's why people don't like me. I say what I think. I don't care about people's feelings. I never have. That's why gays don't like me. That's why the LGBT community doesn't like me. Because I tell them what I think. They do something I don't like, I say it. They go, you can't say that. I say, you can say what you want about me, but I can't say it about you.
Yeah. I've had a more problem with people like people that I grew up with. Like, I mean, they might have been a little bit younger than me, but I've had a lot of people that I just don't understand how they jumped off like the loony
Mm-hmm.
bin so quick. But a lot of them also like they smoke a lot, but they
Mm-hmm.
complain about having like money issues and everything else, and then you'll like,
Oh, yeah.
and then they'll like you'll post something on Facebook, and they'll be like, um, they'll be saying some weird shit, saying that they're protecting their friends or something from you, and then not too long later they'll post something that's like the most rapey shit you've ever seen, like uh basically there's like someone that's like bisexual and stuff, and she posted something about taking like it was like your friend just went through a bad breakup or whatever, and it was like a picture of her like making out with them and shit. And I was like, taking advantage of emotionally vulnerable person's kind of fucked, just a little bit.
Mm,
Um,
no, that's just women. That's what they do.
yeah.
It's just women.
And then
Though
her
I love it
sister tried
when
to pull the
women.
She tried to pull the psychologist thing on
Mhm.
Facebook, saying that she took a class for psychology in college, and she's going through courses to become a psychologist. So she tried to diagnose me with like schizophrenia and stuff. She was saying that those are signs of early signs of schizophrenia, saying I had illusions of grandeur and things. And I was like, I don't think I care.
Grandeur. Illusions of grandeur. They're what we call dreams.
I just don't think I had that necessarily in general, but also she's not a graduate. She's not even a practicing psychologist, and I kind of expected more from. But that's the problem, is like those are the people that are graduating and becoming psychologists and stuff, and experts in people's fields, and they're gonna.
And they have no idea what they're thinking about, and they do more harm than good. Yeah, I know.
Well, she's flexing her power to like hurt people.
Oh yeah, that's what they do. Because the pay, you get so used to it. I see. It's like women used to have the easiest lives in the world. Fun part is, did you know that now women have rights? They're the unhappiest they've ever been in history. When they had no rights, no votes, nothing, that was actually the happiest point statistically in their life. They had nothing to worry about. They never had to worry about where the next meal was because it was the man who had to do it.
I always just kind of wonder what would have happened with everything if, because like if you think about it, like people complain about rent prices and
Hmm.
wages and all that, but if we had half of the people working, then you would have twice as many jobs,
Yep.
probably higher
It's like
wage, less rent.
here's my question for you. What field do most women work in?
It's gonna be people stuff.
HR. Guess what field of work barely does their fucking job and slows down a company ridiculously? HR. Iceland, all the women in Iceland went on strike, which was nearly half the population. Guess what happened?
It's nothing. I mean, I think it
The
actually improved.
country, no, yeah, the country had never run so smooth. And a bunch of a CEO went to go, it was nice to get some shit done. Because there was no women dragging their feet, men just got on with it, sorted it. Men laughed at them. They go, "You think you're what holds up our society?" And they go, "No. Men build society. Men maintain society. Women live in society.
Well, thing right
That's how
now
it
is you
is."
have a mixture of protections and stuff that were made for women, like in the past, and then you have the new generations of women who are like
Mhm.
high empowered,
Yeah,
anti-toxic masculinity, all that stuff. So then when you
yeah.
come into like a workplace, you have girls that have a lot of protection, and they're not really
Versus men who
afraid
have
to.
none.
Well, that as well. Men don't have anything, but they're willing to flex that a lot more than they would have in the past. So like any inconvenience, I've seen girls like file sexual harassment reports and stuff on people just because they didn't like what job position they were at, so that they would get moved to another position, or they would get someone fired so that they could have their
Oh yeah,
job. It's like,
that's the way. That's how it is.
yeah, it's
But I bet you, if World War III was announced and the draft came up, women would run to the kitchen quicker than a fucking Olympic runner. They would run to the kitchen.
I mean, they were already
So they,
doing something with that in Congress. I don't remember if it passed or not. I don't think it did.
yeah, they would go. Yeah, they would run so fast. And they go, no, I would fight for my country. It's like so take it this. So do you want to go to war, potentially die, or come home with such serious PTSD that you can barely function as a human being, then essentially left on the streets to die. Would you like that? They'll go no. They're going yeah. Then you'd end up fucking running. You wouldn't want to go. You wouldn't volunteer.
Yeah.
They'd all go, well, we're women. Why would we fight? You said you want equal fights, equal rights, equal fights. That's the meaning of equality. It means everything's equal. That would mean a man can punch a woman. That's what that means. That's what equality is. You are the same. There's the same punishment for both sides.
Yeah.
That's the problem. That's what they want, but they don't realize it. That means if they had the exact same equality as us, a man could go beat the shit out of a woman. Because it's equality. That's equal treatment. Because a man can go beat the shit out of a man. That's the exact same thing, which is not what they want, is it? And a lot of feminists actually say that they regret getting them rights. They regret it. A
Well,
lot of the original feminists.
it was a small portion of feminism that was pushing for all that in general as well.
Yeah, a lot of them say that they regret fighting for it because it's not what they wanted. It turned into something else. So what are you meant to do at that point?
Yeah.
At that point, it's kind of that's why they say it's like give them an inch, they'll take a mile.
Yeah. But you're always gonna have people that want to push more. Well, it's like when you're in high school or whatever, and you got people that run for like student body council, and you have like somebody saying they're gonna give you like a vending machine or like extra recess. You know, like people are always gonna want something more, and then there's people that are always gonna try and give them something more so that they can have a job.
It's like me. If someone says in office that they're going to do something, I don't believe them. And if they ask me why, I go, because it's a pitch. A
Well,
pitch is not a guarantee.
I think that when people actually say things, that they should be held accountable for it for the
I
most
would
part.
go, say, if you
For
make a
lying.
pledge to go into office, you sign a contract saying if you do not do this, you will be held legally and financially, say, accountable. Be nice if they did something like politician fraud. You've said you're going to do something, you didn't. You've committed fraud. Prison time, bye bye, bitch. But that's never going to happen.
Well, it's the same stuff with like
Because,
sales and products and stuff. I feel like companies should be punished for like lying about
yeah,
their shit.
accountability, yeah. Yeah.
But